The woman's voice sliced through the quiet morning air. "Your creek is illegal," she spat, her finger trembling with anger. But as the cement truck poured thick gray concrete into the gentle stream behind his house, Marcus didn't move. He just watched, silent, still, as the ground that once carried his peace was buried alive. What none of them knew was that by the next storm, their perfect lawns would drown. The morning sun hung low over the quiet suburban street, golden light reflecting off neat lawns and identical brick homes. It was the kind of neighborhood that prided itself on order-trimmed hedges, silent driveways, smiles that never quite reached the eyes. And standing in the center of that order was Marcus Carter, a man of few words, broad-shouldered and steady, with the kind of calm that could only come from surviving far worse than neighborhood politics. The hum of the cement truck broke the silence. Its chute hung over the narrow creek that cut softly through Marcus's backyard, a thin stream of life that whispered through grass and stones. It wasn't much, but to Marcus, it was everything. He'd built it by hand, stone by stone, a small memorial for his son who used to skip pebbles along it. Now, a woman in a navy blazer stood before him, her voice sharp and official. She represented the Homeowners Association, or so she made sure to remind him. Her name didn't matter, only her authority did. "You were warned," she said. "This waterway violates HOA landscaping regulations." Behind her, workers began to pour. The concrete slid like molten ash, swallowing the stream's glimmer, sealing over its memory. Marcus's eyes didn't flinch. He stood still, hands folded before him. No one saw the pain that flickered behind his calm. No one saw the image replaying in his mind, his little boy's laughter echoing in that same creek. The way the sunlight used to catch his hair. The promise he had made at the grave to keep that sound alive, even if only through a trickling stream. But rules, they said, were rules. Marcus had lived in that neighborhood for 5 years. A veteran of quiet service, he had spent his youth in places where silence could mean survival. He didn't talk much about his past, about the night his convoy was caught in a flood in the desert, or the friend he couldn't pull out in time. Maybe that's why the sound of running water calmed him. It reminded him that life could move on. That flow meant healing. After his discharge, he built that creek with his own hands, hauling stones, carving the path, shaping it until it felt right. Neighbors watched from their windows, curious, maybe even judgmental. But Marcus didn't build it for them. He built it for peace. And for a while, it worked on till the letters started coming. First, polite notices about unauthorized modifications. Then, formal warnings. Finally, a fine. Marcus paid none of it. He believed in quiet defiance, the kind that doesn't argue but endures. So when the HOA arrived that morning with their clipboards, cameras, and cement truck, he didn't shout. He just stood there, a single man against a machine. Days passed. The concrete hardened, the creek was gone, and the neighborhood went back to smiling, proud of its order once again. But then came the rain. At first, it was light, a whisper of water over rooftops. Then the skies darkened. The storm grew heavy, fierce. Gutters overflowed, drains clogged, and the water, with nowhere left to flow, began to rise. One by one, lawns turned to puddles, puddles to ponds, ponds to swamps. The pristine neighborhood that once boasted perfect order was now drowning in its own perfection. Marcus stood at his window, watching the water creep across his neighbors' driveways. He said nothing. He simply stepped outside, barefoot, feeling the cool rain against his skin. The woman from the HOA stood in the street, her shoes sinking into the mud, shouting orders into her phone. But no one could help her now. Nature had a way of remembering what was stolen from it. Marcus walked to where his creek used to be. The concrete had cracked thin lines spidering through the surface. Water was finding its way back. Pushing through, reclaiming its path, he knelt, running his hand over the rough surface, and whispered, "You can't bury what's meant to flow." When the storm finally passed, the damage was undeniable. Basements flooded, lawns destroyed. The once proud HOA called for an emergency meeting. Their tone, suddenly different. Soft, uncertain. Marcus was there, sitting quietly in the back of the room. The same woman who had once yelled at him now stood at the podium, her voice trembling as she read the report. After reviewing the cause, she said, "It appears the flooding originated from altered drainage patterns linked to the concrete project behind Mr. Carter's home." Murmurs filled the room. Heads turned toward Marcus. He didn't meet their eyes. He simply stood, calm as always, and said, "I told you the water had a purpose." Then he left. In the weeks that followed, the HOA reversed their ruling. They hired crews at their own expense to remove the concrete, restore the creek, and redesign the entire neighborhood drainage system. When the workers returned, Marcus didn't speak. He just watched them uncover the stones he had once placed with his hands. And when the water began to flow again, soft and gentle, he smiled, not out of revenge, but peace. Dignity doesn't need to shout, the narrator would say, if there were one. It only needs to stand. And Marcus stood. Through disrespect, through silence, through the kind of quiet strength that doesn't demand justice, it attracts, it adds. The neighborhood watched the creek come back to life. Something changed. People started greeting him differently. The same neighbors who once stayed behind their fences now waved from their porches, and the woman from the HOA. She showed up one morning, holding a small sapling. She didn't say much, just planted it beside the stream. Marcus nodded. That was enough. When the sun broke through the clouds that day, the light hit the water just right, a shimmer of silver running through green dot. It was more than a creek now. It was a reminder that silence can be power, that peace can outlast anger, that sometimes the loudest justice comes in quiet waves. Asterisk, not every battle is fought with words. Some are fought with patience, faith, and the courage to let truth reveal itself in time. If this story moved you, take a moment to reflect on the unseen battles people fight every day. Wherever you're watching from, share your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, silence, when anchored in truth, is never weakness. It's strength flowing, unstoppable, like water finding its way home. Asterisk.